Welcome and welcome back to Rooted to Thrive, conversations that elevate our humanity podcast. It's your friend Rochelle Peterson-Ansari. Many of y'all know me as Professor P. Now, today, I have the honor of having Dr. Kyle Morris Soul, a founder and co-executive director of the Eco Foundation with me. And what is even more important, when I first met Dr. Morris Soul, I'll call him Kyle, okay? When I first met him, I was at a retreat and I thought, man, this guy, Kyle was facilitating, moderating during this retreat in New Jersey with this organization, the Black Nonprofit Chief Executives of Philadelphia. And I thought, man, oh, he's an entertainer. Had no idea of all of the things that were Dr. Kyle Morris Soul until well after the fact. And I think I saw you again at the retreat and you were moderating, like this was during the evening activities. And again, I'm thinking, such an entertainer, wonderful. And here we are, Dr. Kyle Morris Soul, a person of many hats, many talents. I am so honored to have you with me. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm feeling powerful after that story. That was a good royal reminder. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful and I'm powerful. That's how I'm doing today. Yeah, for sure.
And
For sure.
thank you.
Thank you for the kindness.
Oh, please. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us. Thank you for joining the Rooted to Thrive tribe. That's what I'm calling us.
Okay,
And to
tribe.
yes, and today we are talking about designing culturally responsive engagement.
Okay.
And yeah, and so before we talk about strategies and frameworks, I'd love to start with your story. What experiences in your life shape your belief that learning and healing spaces must be intentionally designed for people to feel seen and valued?
Yeah. So I think about my first interaction with a traditional healing space, right? Like
Mm,
many of us have been a part of healing communities, healing spaces without recognizing them as such. We may not have the language for it, but when we're on our mama's lap or our grandmama's lap, or we're on a couch with our family and everyone's having fun, and that's a healing space. That's a space of joy, right? So those are the non-traditional healing spaces that go back since yay high, right? Um, my first traditional healing space was therapy. I was in therapy because I was getting in a lot of trouble in school. I was in the seventh grade, I believe. And my mom and my dad, who didn't live together, they would come and we would meet up on Tuesdays and go to therapy with some old white guy. And that's how I looked at him. Like I was a 12-year-old. I just remember like he was just so disconnected from me culturally and age-wise and every other box that it just felt and disingenuine and it just didn't feel good. And my first time there, he would make references to things to connect with my parents more than to connect with me. His The way he spoke, even who he was looking at, was mostly at my dad and my mom versus looking at me, even when he was talking about me in front of me. And it was supposed to be therapy for me because I was getting in trouble. And I had to deal with or learn how to deal with not being the only child anymore. That was a small part of it. My mother and my father both had children around the same time with separate people. And, so now I have these younger siblings. I was getting in a lot of trouble in school and I just needed more. And that provider, that mental health provider wasn't able to provide a safe space for me, right? Like he wasn't able to provide a space where I felt seen, where I felt heard, where I felt like my opinion mattered, where I felt valued. And
mm,
and it had nothing to do with his age. I've had older therapists after that, and nothing to do with his ethnicity. I've had white therapists after that, but it was just I don't think he should have been doing family therapy, with like youth-centered family therapy, and maybe that's the way they used to do things back in 2002, 2003. but 2026 that don't fly. So
That right.
yeah,
I understand. So yeah, and for many of us, it there were pivotal moments, right, in our background that got us into the work or
hmm
starting to think even innovatively about how we approach work, education, even entertainment, healing, right? In multiple spaces. So I appreciate that. I'm glad you could tell us a little bit about your story. So, many people they talk about culturally responsive leadership, education, but you often emphasize engagement design.
yeah.
Yeah, so what does that phrase mean to you, and why does it matter right now?
So edutainment is the combination of education and entertainment. It was first coined by Walt Disney in the 1940s. It became something that most people could identify with by the 1970s with National Geographic using television to teach people about animals and worlds and places they've never seen before. But it was popularized by a brother named KRS-One. And KRS-One is the popular rapper, Boogie Down Productions, and he had an album called Edutainment that came out in the year of the GOAT. I don't know if it was really the year of the GOAT, but it was the year I was born and I'm the GOAT. So I have to
Okay.
say it was the year of the GOAT 1990. And
Mhm.
it was using rap music, which was getting demonized at the time, to teach people about their history, their importance of self-love, and the importance of unity through music. So fast forward to my academic experience, just starting at my origins, I used to love when my teachers would roll in the TV cart because we were going to watch something. I used to love
Mm,
when we would have an authentic assessment or summative assessment and play Jeopardy in trivia games, and instead of just doing a basic like quiz or something like that to prepare for a basic studying before a quiz. So I always loved the fun side of education. And I was like, well, how do we do this every day? How do we make this a thing? And one day I got suspended a lot when I was younger. One day I'm suspended from school in 11th grade, and I saw this movie called Accepted. And Accepted is a movie about these students who don't get accepted into college. So they made up their own college. It was called Southampton Institute of Technology, and the university, they would like hang out in the pool, they would skateboard, they would do all this stuff, right? That just seemed like fun stuff, but actually they were able to prove in a court of law that they were learning. They were able to prove that,
mm,
well, skateboarding, someone had to design the ramps. That's engineering. And when you're
mm, mm.
swimming, you're just laying there, you're practicing mindfulness and meditation, and they were able to prove their case. And I'm like, it just opened up my mind. I remember telling my grandmother, Cheryl Morris, who's since become an ancestor, telling her I want to become a teacher. I want to own my, no, I want to become I want to own my own school. I want to start an institution like that. She said, well, first you have to become a teacher, then you have to become a principal, and then you have to, do all this other stuff. And for 2006, she told me what she thought was right. Now I know you just need money to start a school, and maybe a couple political connections, but either way, that really sparked my interest in edutainment. And I went on in 2019 and start my doctoral program at Temple University, where I was able to go into ed leadership. And my job, my role, my research is on how do we use edutainment to support students from low SES communities, students of color specifically from low SES communities, so they don't disengage from school and they stay engaged in the classroom, right? So by doing so, we're able to change neighborhoods that are structurally violent, because a lot of structural violence is the combination of high poverty rates, high dropout rates, and high unemployment rates. So if you're able to not disengage from school and stay connected into the content, you're able to actually complete your degree or your diploma rather, and go on to at least get a job and not repeat these negative cycles that ultimately perpetuate violence within our community. So that was the reason why I got into this work, and that's like the origin, of course, but why it's so important today for educational leaders. And I don't just mean traditional education like K to college spaces, but also in corporate spaces, also in healthcare. I was telling you before we logged on that I just did a maternal health conference, maternal health and mortality conference for the city of Chester's Department of Health. I've never worked with that population before. I've done a lot of gun violence group therapy. I've done a lot of education, right? I've done a lot of wellness retreats, stuff like that. But I don't typically touch that area, but edutainment can be applicable anywhere. And I'll share a little bit more about my framework later if it comes up. But using the GM3 model, games, media, message, and movement, anyone can apply it to make their learning experience better so people actually retain the content without having to sacrifice learning objectives and rigor.
Yes, you said games. Look, games, messaging, and movement, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And media, that's the
And
third one.
media.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Culturally
Excellent.
relevant media. Yes, ma'am.
That's yes. And yes, and I know why it's culturally relevant. We'll get into that as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, because you talked about the fact that in neighborhoods where people are living in poverty, right?
Hmm.
There are social determinants that interfere with people thriving, right?
Yeah.
I want to just dial that back and make sure that it's clear to everyone that you're talking about that there are systems set up. It's the way we teach people,
Yep.
the expectations of those students in their neighborhood schools, wherever they go to school,
Yeah.
that right, that is reinforcing that they should first of all learn how to just follow directions versus lead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and more. I'm not going to take up too much space on that because I'll get on a soapbox
Take your
about
time, Pastor. Take your
that's
time.
okay. But the bottom line is that you are introducing a framework and interactive approaches to connect, to
Yeah.
be culturally relevant through storytelling, movement, media, dialogue to
Mhm.
reduce power barriers.
Yeah. I like that
Yeah.
term, power barriers. I've never heard that before. I
You
like that.
haven't? I
That's
thought I
nice.
heard you say it before.
No, I don't know. Nah, nah, it wasn't me, it was you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so building that connection, I mean that's where you probably didn't know this before, that's where we connect, right?
Hmm.
So I've been an educator for 38 years,
Wow.
primarily in colleges and universities, and around 2006 decided, so I was like an administrator, always working with and on behalf of historically marginalized students, trying to help them build their power, like understand their power in the space, right? You are
Hmm.
literally customers. We like, they're students. We don't like to use that word customers, but they pay the bills.
Yeah, they are.
Yes, and they all have the right to the same quality of education that wasn't always afforded to them. Fast forward to 2006, I started teaching at other colleges where some of the students, well, many of the students were returning to college after like 10 years,
Mm.
and their self-efficacy was in the gutter.
Yeah,
I mean, in the gutter. And I thought, wait, these are people's parents. Something clicked in me that I'm going to believe in them until they believe in themselves. That was my main job,
of course.
besides teaching sociology and whatever other subjects I was teaching them at the time. But I just, something clicked about, we have to start at pre-K to 12.
Yeah.
Something is missing. And I started on a journey to begin teaching in education departments, which I did at Arcadia, and
Okay.
have been committed there ever since, right? Like that, we have to work on our educators in pre-K to 12 while they're pre-service educators, whether they're in service. We have to work on people to help them understand that you're pawns in a system in American society if you don't
Yeah.
bring to your consciousness what you're actually being asked to do. And there are ways around it. I'll say it, right? Like there are ways to not only have build up your own self-efficacy, because now that's an issue in 2026 for many educators coming out of college. They are struggling, especially, but well, I think they all struggled all the time, However, when in 2026, they are leaving. They come in August and they say, hey, I don't like this. They're going by October instead of, muscling it and in some cases not being treated well, etc.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So now we have these people who have poor self efficacy teaching our students. We have parents whose self efficacy is low. I feel like the children are doomed, right? If we don't intervene in some new and different and innovative ways. So we're looking to hear from you about what that could look like.
Well, thank you for adding so much context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be intentional. When I say culturally relevant, every culture is different. So going into a learning space, you have to be ready to adapt. And that looks like administering something really simple. I have a website that I created that anyone can go in, make a copy of this survey, modify it to their liking, and use it before they step into a learning space. But it's called takethisjohn.com. And John is spelled normally. If you're from Philly, you know John like pawn, that's how you spell it. But takethisjohn.com has a survey on there that asks not only what are some of your interests, right? Like, what TV shows do you like? What YouTube channels do you subscribe to? What are some of your favorite songs, right? That's important. But also, what is their learning style, and what kind of incentives do they like? So by understanding that, I can get a snapshot of, I teach freshman seminar at Cheney University right now. I have 100 students. So I administered this survey. I had 68 people reply, which is pretty good. And I was able to identify, oh, they like Lil Uzi, they like Rod Wave, they like SZA, they like this artist, that artist. They like the TV show Stranger Things. They like Reno 911, surprisingly. They like whatever it is they like. So as I'm creating my PowerPoint slides or my Canva presentation, I can start playing this music in the background. I can start adding memes to the side of the corner. I can start looking up clips from TV shows that can teach the same concept that I'm trying to teach, especially when I was doing a workshop called Peace Under Pressure, which is like stress management, if you will, and teaching them about like the window of tolerance and coping mechanisms and all of that. I can pull up a clip from a TV show called Stranger Things and apply that to the classroom. So, and that looks different. That's what my students like here. But when I'm doing a workshop, I did a workshop at Pace University in New York in December. Those students are completely different than my students here. They're younger, different ethnicities. It was very diverse. I had to come correct and make sure that I took that time to look at the survey, interview people if I can, always take time to interview if you can, do some observations, but then from there develop a curriculum that is definitely going to be rigorous and have all your learning objectives and whatever you put in that proposal to get that school or that entity to hire you. But also you want to make sure it's as fun and engaging as possible, because when people are playing games, I mean, there's a lot of research. Dr. Ellerby talks about this. There's a lot of research that connects play and learning retention, right? So content retention. So you want to be able to retain as much information as possible. You want to enjoy the experience, and you want them to have a good time, um, so they could tell other people about it and they could replay those laughs, those jokes. And that's the games, right? Gamification. I'm not the first person to study gamification, but when it comes to edutainment, specifically with the population I'm serving, I'm the first person in the nation to study edutainment in that way. So I take a lot of pride in that. That also means I need to continue to conduct research because it can't stop in my dissertation. I'm not, a tenure track professor here. I'm an adjunct, but I still want to continue my research. So for me, I'll talk about that a little later, but I do have some projects that I'm working on where I'll be interviewing schools, partners, interviewing teachers and focus groups, as well as sending out some surveys so I can just collect as much data as possible, get it IRB approved so I can actually get this information published. So I look forward to doing that by the end of the year. But going back to the GM3 model, that's the games. Uh, Culturally relevant media, I talked about that. The messaging, it has to connect to whatever your learning objectives are. That's a part of it. But also, how can they learn something that is not only applicable in the learning space, but something in the real world or their real lives? So taking it outside of the classroom, I was just talking about multiplying fractions. I was sharing a story with my students. I got a D that quarter when we learned how to multiply fractions. I never needed it again, so I never learned how to multiply fractions. However, I found out I can go on ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever you choose to use. I can have them, hey, teach me about multiplying fractions in the tone of Drake or Kendrick Lamar
Right.
and create lyrics. And then I can go
Mm-hmm.
into an app called Suno and then take that same list of lyrics and then have Suno generate a song for me. So now I have a Kendrick Lamar song, a Drake song, a Rod Wave song, a Tina Marie song, a Whitney Houston song about multiplying fractions that I can listen to and replay over and
Yes.
over and over again. Now, my story about multiplying fractions wasn't about the fractions. It wasn't about how schools will teach you things that you may never use, but it was about the importance of using something like AI that they're glued to using all the time anyway, whether it's memes and media, whatever else, and somehow how they could use AI to teach them things like complex concepts that are hard and challenging for them. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, movement. So when it comes to movement, movement looks different in every space, right? So I've been in workshops in Illinois. I never forget, it was my first time doing a workshop with a learner who was wheelchair bound. And I had a plan in my head. We're gonna go from the left side of the room to the right side of the room and vote with our bodies based on the prompt that's on the screen. And it starts lighthearted, right? Like we may start with does do grits get salt or sugar? Or something that like tacos or wings, which ones are better? Or something that seems really trivial. One's gotta go. And it's like toothpaste or body soap. And it may seem like we're talking about something trivial, but either way, asking them to move was the plan, but I had to switch to left arm up, right arm up because I still wanted people to move their bodies in a way, but I also need to recognize that not everyone can move the same way that everyone else can move. And if I start with something as simple as, you know, toothpaste or body soap, it gets people talking a little bit, right? It opens up the conversation. It's fun. That's something I learned from an organization called Genius Potential. Genius Potential is an edutainment organization that travels the nation doing workshops for many government funded programs like Gear Up and Trio. So either way, this particular question is not just a question about toiletries. It's a question about access. It's recognizing that not everyone can choose which one has to go. Because if we're talking about what one has to go between hot water and Wi-Fi, sometimes people make decisions on which bill they're paying, right? Some people make a decision on, I have this much money. Am I going to buy toiletries or am I going to buy food? And if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't been in that position as an educator, you need to put yourself in that person's shoes. And the audience at that time was a room full of educators. And we talked about how if you are also struggling with your own financial insecurities, think about what your students are going through. And you need to be able to have compassion for them. But with burnout and empathy fatigue and compassion fatigue, we can't show up for our students the way they need to. And that's why we created this workshop called Don't Eat the Students. It comes from a book titled If You Don't Feed the Teachers, They Eat the Students. So we created Don't Eat the Students to be this wellness workshop for educators around the country. And if you actually go on don'teatthestudents.com, I have a survey because I'm writing a book about Don't Eat the Students, where you can fill out some questions, let us know about your stressors, what works for you, what ways have you tried to find peace within so you don't take it out on the students around you. And when you do, what do you do then, right? Like what happens when you do hurt a student or cause harm? Like how do you repair that relationship in a restorative way? So those are just some of the things that I've been working on, and those are the ways that the GM3 model could be applied. And for anyone listening, if you go on theedutainer.org, that's the EDUTAINERS.org. I actually have a link tree with a bunch of resources, everything on there from the GM3 rubric that you can use. It's already trademarked, so I don't mind people using it. To a couple PowerPoint presentations to help identify the learning styles of the people in your space, and also have books like Unearthing Joy by Dr. Gholdy Muhammad. And If You Don't Feed the Teachers, They Eat the Students is in there as well. So
Mm-hmm.
those are just some free sources for your guests, for your listeners.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Of
And you
course.
said so many things in there. Yeah, you said so many things, but I had a question. Oh, so on the website where you said teachers could go and complete your survey, is this, or,
Don'teatthestudents.com.
oh, right. So, well, these are educators. I'm sorry. Is
Yep.
this for pre-K to 12? Is this for all levels of education?
Yeah, it's for anyone that's on the front lines of education. So anyone who
Okay.
works directly with students. So whether
Yes.
you're a non-teaching assistant,
Mhm.
a lunch attendant, uh, a teacher, like a traditional teacher, a paraprofessional,
Mhm. Mhm.
really anyone who works directly with students. Maybe even I didn't want to say like all types of administrators, but people know what front lines feels like. If you have students
Hmm.
in your face all day, you work in a financial aid office, then you need to be intentional about how you're receiving those students and
That's
what
right.
practices do you have? What coping mechanisms are you applying today or tomorrow? How are you widening your window of tolerance so you're not snapping on someone and you're not
Right.
letting fight, flight, fawn, and freeze take over?
Hmm. Hmm. So that would then include college and university
Yes,
folks.
yes, yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yes,
I just
yes.
want to make sure,
Oh, for sure.
because
Thank you.
like you use certain words, like if you say lunchroom, people will be like, oh, that's not me. If they're in
Oh,
higher
yeah.
ed, right?
Yeah.
So just want to make sure that everybody knows
Oh,
it's
for
for
sure.
them.
That's
Yeah, I'm
right.
gonna go
Thank you for
on.
the clarity. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on myself then.
Thank
Shoot.
you. Yeah, thank you. And the cool thing about it is four educators per month, four people that complete the survey. After you complete the survey, it's anonymous, 100% anonymous. There's a link to take to be entered into the raffle. So you can only get that link if you completed the survey. So I know that you've done your due diligence. And then four people who complete that will win a $25 gift card per month. And one school partner, well, as of now, it's well, it depends on how local they are because I do workshops literally from Long Beach to Miami to Chicago to Philly, like all over. But any local people in the Philadelphia, Delaware, Chester County area, at
Mhm.
least one workshop a month that I'll be offering the Don't Eat the Students experience two for free. So school
Nice.
partners can also win a wellness workshop as well.
That's awesome.
Yep,
Excellent. Thank you for
of
that.
course, of course.
So, so let's drill down a little bit on designing these spaces, right? So you talk
Hmm.
about designing spaces that hold both learning and healing.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that combination?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't always know how to heal, right?
Mhm.
It's not taught to us. It's not innate, right? And when I say heal, I mean healthy coping mechanisms. We see coping mechanisms around us. We see, mom is stressed. She has a glass of wine at the end of a long day. We see dad have a cigar out back. We see someone getting real stressed and they want to go shopping. We've seen those types of things, but those aren't always healthy. In moderation, everything is, whatever. How you get your dopamine hits is how you get your dopamine hits. I'm not here to judge. However, recognizing ways to heal and teaching those things in a way that makes sense to your audience. So if you're talking to a 3-year-old, it's different than talking to a 33-year-old. And if you're in a classroom, it's different than in a corporate setting, right? So recognizing whatever that looks like, whether it's an employee EAP program, you can give them access. You can, lead a horse to water. How are you going to make them heal, right? So that's a part of it, recognizing that you have to be intentionally implement. That's something that my Dr. McGinley from Temple University said. We're not rolling out things; we intentionally implement things. So, when you're intentionally implementing healing into your learning space, you want to know your audience. That's the first thing that you have to do, and then based on that, you have to be really confident in whatever you're teaching them. Because the last thing you want to do is give someone a bunch of resources that they can't use or apply. So just to show what that looks like, and that was theoretically, but let's give a specific example. When I'm here with my students at Cheney University, like I said, I have four classes, 25 students each, all on Wednesday. So I'm back to back. And when I'm working with them and we're talking about coping mechanisms, so let's say we're having talking about, today we're talking about AI. So today we're talking about the power of AI. When we're doing that, we had to ask ourselves, like, what's morally right, ethically right, and what's legal? So as we're having these conversations and letting them know, like, okay, AI, when you're using AI, it can cause harm to our environment. So you have to decide if that's morally right or not, and having that conversation, conversations around guilt came up and powerlessness because it went from you're hurting the environment with AI to we're hurting the environment with fast fashion to we're hurting the environment or people that are mining for coltan for so I can get a new iPhone or a new whatever. So then we start talking about what does guilt feel like? What does helplessness feel like? And then I had to have like a mini therapy session and hold space for about three
Mhm.
students who were really upset by the conversation that took place. And
Mhm.
initially, I thought about, all right, I have to get through this, only having 50 minutes. I have to get through this content because I need to drive this point home.
Right.
But that's an intentional decision that I made to be about 8 to 10 minutes behind schedule and just maybe send an email out later because I needed to hold space for that person that was going through something.
Mhm.
And and it's not just about the one thing that's in front of you, right? It's not just about guilt in this space or whatever. It's about the sense of powerlessness that they feel in their lives in general. And that we kind of zoomed out and we're able to discuss, like at 18 years old, sometimes your parents are making decisions for you and you haven't found a way to step into your power and transform, as Brother Oba would say. So you're still kind of going with the flow, getting moved along. You said earlier, I don't know if it was on camera or not, but we have students who have to raise their hand to go to the bathroom for
Mm,
12 years. And then they turn 18 and we're supposed to act like they could just leave the world. We didn't
right.
prepare them for that.
That's
Right.
right.
So, how do we expect students to just have that innately, right? So
Hmm.
that was just a short example of how we were able to hold space for them. I had a student come up to me after class and let me know that their brother passed away recently, and that's why they haven't been coming. And they missed some assignments, and they tried emailing me, but I was a student here at Cheney, so my student email for some reason is still active, and they emailed the wrong email versus emailing me. Um, and just sharing that experience, I'm like, I know I have another class 10 minutes later, but my next class just had to wait. We had to step into the hallway. I had to just comfort her in that moment and let her know that her grades will be okay. I need her to focus on her healing. And
Hmm.
not to say it's the end all be all, but I have these wristbands that say keep your crown up. And keep your crown up is a model that I created back in 2015, and the wristbands in 2016, and the logo in 2016 as well, just to remind people of their royalty, remind people that when things get hard, keep your crown up. You don't have a choice but to stay positive in the hardest and toughest of moments. But I'm saying that to say, whether we're in a corporate space or kindergarten, we have to be as intentional as possible in implementing healing in moments of peace or moments of checking in human to human connection, whether that's an icebreaker you ask in the beginning of your workshop, or you stop halfway through your Q4 report to get everyone to
Hmm.
do a quick stretch, or hey, let's do a five-finger breathing technique, or let's
Hmm.
do whatever we need to do to get through the rest of this presentation. And going back to knowing your audience, you're looking at them. If three, four people's heads are down, or they're on their phones, or they seem checked out, then that's when you need to do a brain break, a body break, a bio break, rather, as it's called. Dr. Axe would say, and do what's best for your group, because they're not going to be able to retain whatever it is you're trying to teach them if you don't take a moment to take care of the person, and not just
Yeah,
teach souls, not subjects, is what I say.
there you go. So I was going to say that what you're describing is human centered education.
Mm.
Yes, student centered, human centered. And you said soul,
Teach souls, not subjects. Yeah,
teach souls, not subjects, right?
people, not projects. Yeah.
And we know that that is a paradigm, right? Like, so that is a perspective on how you see teaching. And there are many people out there saying, wait, that's not my job.
Hmm.
That's not my job. What do you have to say to them?
They're in the wrong profession. Brother Sharif Al-Mekki has shared this publicly, and I just first time I heard it, it just shook me to my core. But secret teaching is a sacred art. It's sacred work we're doing, right? This
Mm-hmm.
isn't something anybody could just pick up and do. And there's a lot of people who don't belong here. And if you're putting someone in front of you, if someone's been put in front of you, if you've been assigned or positioned in a way that there's a power dynamic there too, right? So you have to check your own stuff. You have to check your own biases, and you have to have come to grips with how you were taught, and
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, would you want to be taught by you? Right? Some of us
Mm-hmm.
have ridiculous standards. Some of us are hypercritical. I'm very critical of myself, and I'm very intentional, and I have to catch myself sometimes. I'm not perfect, but not being too critical of my students. And
Yeah.
that's where grace is extended. And that's when I remember the grace that I was given by God was not, I didn't deserve that grace. I got it just because I'm me. Like I just got it because I was given grace. In the same way I was just given grace, and I need to extend grace. So people need to know that. People need to know that as a teacher, as an educator, right, you are also a social worker. You are also sometimes a nurse. You're also a therapist sometimes. You wear many crowns, but that's all comes a part of the sacred work that we're doing as educators. And I mean
Mm-hmm.
that from K to college. And I keep on mentioning corporate. I keep on mentioning nonprofits. I keep on mentioning these non-traditional learning spaces, because if you are going to teach someone anything, you have to care about what they how they learn and what they're going through, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're not going to reach them. And of course, we've heard before they care what you know, they have to know that you care. Like we know that to be true. And
Mhm.
sometimes you don't care. And if you don't care, I don't know if there's a way to fake it till you make it, but you still have to be empathetic. You still
Mhm.
have to be compassionate. You still have to be intentional with your instruction, and make sure that you're not underestimating the people in front of you. And this happens more so, I'd say, in K to 12, but I noticed it in college too, where you're like, I don't know, they come from this background or they from this zip code or they typically score this. They're not ready to learn this. And you're limiting them. So you're putting your beliefs on them and preventing them from excelling and advancing in a way that is that they actually need. So I would say for those people who say it's not their job, just to change professions, just to
Mhm.
go back to my original point, because and I will also say people who start out caring and they burn themselves out and they tried everything they could try. Again, hurt people,
Mhm.
heal people. So
Yes.
if you could do everything you can to be on the other side of through, and you can look back and know that what you've been through, and you can, you know what, I'm gonna give my students my all, and keep going forward. Don't let your
Yeah.
foot off the gas. But if you've been burned out by this work and you've tried and you're in this, you could just be in the wrong school too, right? But if
Mhm.
you're in a school where the systems are stronger than you and you can't change it because it's just that oppressive, you have to leave, and maybe you stay in the profession, maybe you don't. But if you choose to stay in this profession, then you need to find the best coping mechanisms and strategies possible and find ways to widen your window of tolerance, which I keep talking about, which is just there's hyperarousal, which is fight or flight. We typically see people, fight. We know what that is. Flight, sometimes avoiding the problem. Then there's hypoarousal, which is fawn or freeze. And a lot more people fawn than they know. And fawning, in short, of course, for some of your listeners, I apologize if this is simple, but fawning is when you are so worried about people accepting you and you being rejected that you just kind of go along to get along. I'm fine. They take on more work than they could really do because they just want to be a valued member of the team. That's something I'm guilty of a lot because my value is typically, if I'm not intentional, I look at my value as being my output, and I'm only
Mhm.
deserving if I'm putting out a lot of good work, which is why many of
Service.
us are overachievers. It's
Mhm.
like, hey, look at me, I'm good, I'm good. Like, no, trust me, pick me, right? It's like
Mhm.
the professional pick me, right? And then freeze is exactly what it sounds like. Or you get stuck, you don't do anything.
Mhm.
So that's hypoarousal. And the goal is the more overstimulated we are, we're gonna have negative stimuli come into our space, right? But you want to have a wider window of tolerance so that way you don't go into a state of fight or flight or fawn or freeze, hyperarousal or hypoarousal. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things we talk about in the book and in the workshop. But there's ways to widen your window so you can still think and feel at the same time. Because when a bunch of
Right.
students come over to your desk and you're like,
Mhm.
hey, back up, give me 5 feet, right? And it's just your desk has papers on it, it has coffee on it, it's just a lot going on in your space. You have to find a way to declutter that and
Mm.
also still show up for those students in a way that they need you to.
Right. So I keep hearing you repeatedly talking about take care of yourself.
Hmm.
You have to pour from your overflow.
Hmm.
If your cup is half empty, you can't serve well. Know yourself. I'm hearing you say that too, right?
Yep.
Know yourself. You talked about what you've been guilty of. That you can slide into that area where you need to take a pause because you tend to serve, right? Or overachieve. And that's coming, a lot of us learn that in school, right? Like it's rewarded and it actually can be internalized as a part of our identities, especially for people who have chosen education as a profession.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, two educators right here talking to you know, I know I can personally say, I know that I had to go to a dark place to claw myself back up out.
Yeah.
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 And I did good work in the world. Yes. Did good work, always still doing good work in the world. But there was a point where the worry, the anxiety caught up with me because I was vigilant. Had nothing to do with what happened in school, but it reinforced this overachieving self that I
Mm,
had created, right? And I was overachieving and accomplishing because I saw that as my value,
mm,
right? And our society, our experiences with our families and sometimes our friends, our peer groups, in our spiritual communities, other institutions reinforce that. And some of us internalize it. But there's a whole crop of us that have chosen a profession where there are right or wrong answers. There's a way to do things in a way, right? Lots of rules,
yeah.
etc. And we are now having to unlearn, or some of us have done it already, thankfully, but we are having to unlearn some of that to be human centered. First, to pour into our own cups and then pour out from our overflow. That means
Hmm.
you have everything you need. You're not trying to you're not trying to serve to say that you matter.
Yeah.
You matter because you exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear how you couple learning and healing together.
Yeah.
Yes. I also, in the stories that you told, like the one where you shared where a student was in crisis and you were like, they can wait 3 minutes for me to talk to this person. That felt so African centered to me, right? Like that our people will not let a person just stand there and be distraught for the sake of starting class on time or
Yeah.
meeting on
Yeah.
time. The other thing I heard was teaching in particular is leadership.
Yeah.
And the same things we are telling leaders, we need to be telling teachers. You
Hmm.
lead your classes, you lead in your classrooms, you lead when you're mentoring. So, a couple of things you didn't mention when you were talking about those characteristics of these educators on the front line was that they're also mentors and they are role models. They see what
Hmm.
you do
Hmm.
and can replicate it and may likely replicate it if they become educators in particular.
Yeah.
Yes? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What's on your mind? Look like you're thinking.
Yeah, because you just put it in a perspective, put things in a perspective. I didn't think about why I chose this career path, right? Like, I mean, I know I wanted to start a school and I thought it was just like the natural progression of things, but I chose a world where there's constantly like what you put in is what you get out.
Mm,
There's a syllabus, and as long as I follow whatever's on the syllabi, I'm going to be successful in those classes.
mhm,
So versus life doesn't have the same inputs and outputs. I can work, I can grind, I can keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, I guess if you're like bodybuilding or working on your body, maybe, but
mhm,
I can work and try to be a rapper, right? And I can keep on doing all the right things and listen to all the right podcasts and TED Talks and read all the books and still not get to where I want to go. Versus I chose this safe career path where, okay, you go to school, you earn this certification in this, and you do this, you'll be hired to earn this much. And you earn this much year one, you earn this much year 10, you become tenure, you get this much. And it's just like very, very uh like regimented in a way that it's just a clear cutout. It's like almost a cookie cutter. I actually am
mhm,
getting my second master's at Lincoln University right now because I've never been certified as a teacher. And for me, I'm like, I've been teaching, this is my 15th year in education, and I'm not certified. So I want to get a cert in that. I want to also get a SPED degree. My wife she has ADHD or lives with ADHD, and our son, he'll be 4, we suspect some things. I also live with ADHD. I was just diagnosed last Friday as an adult. I was diagnosed with autism level 1 last April. So,
mhm,
and I've already, and that's just like how I learned. So that just made
mhm,
sense. But for me, I'm like, all right, as I'm doing my research on entertainment, I found out how great it is for people who are neurodivergent. And it
mhm,
still works for people who are neurotypical, right? So I think about universal design. They made playgrounds softer and safer, which is good for all the kids. Because when we were younger, playgrounds were metal battlegrounds of just steel and rust and concrete and nails and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's good if it's good for, students who may have limited mobility or other like physical challenges, it's good for everybody. Same thing for entertainment. It's good for everybody. And I'm just thinking about as a person, my therapist, a couple therapists ago, taught me about your contextual identity and your content identity, consensual. And I may have made the word consensual up. I know it's definitely content, but it's like, who are you in the context of other people, right? Like I'm someone's son, I'm someone's father, I'm someone's husband, right? I'm someone's teacher, I'm someone's mentor, someone's whatever. But that's the context, who I am in relation to others versus the content of my character is who I really am. And a lot of times, especially as men, we're conditioned to believe that our respect has to be earned, and not just our respect is earned, but our value as men is only as valuable as the things that we're doing. And a lot of time, I think if I would have known this today, I probably would have never gotten a doctorate. But I'm like, I want to be Dr. Kyle because people will then value me and they'll put me here and they have to respect me and they have to, put some respect in my name. Like people always say that, well, oh, you got a doctor, them letters behind your name. Da, da, da. I'm like, I feel you, but I'm still like, I don't need it as much as I thought I needed it then because I've had some healing I've done, but it's still something that feels good. Like it's still something I'm proud of. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I was shot 6 times and I survived. I died briefly on the hospital table. I came back to life. And my second life has been committed to service after a really tough time of healing where I leaned on a lot of vices to get through that tough time, which is why I'm able to, and I was like addicted to opioids. Like I had a really tough couple of years and before therapy and therapy saved my life. Black Men Heal specifically, this is a really dope nonprofit. You get 8 free therapy sessions with a physician of color or provider of color. And I was with my therapist for years, but it took me some time to even be open to therapy because I wasn't really digging what I was getting in other spaces since I was a child. And I'm saying all that to say it took me a lot of time to heal through those 6 gunshots, but it took me 6 years to graduate with my doctorate program, and that was still harder than healing from that. And because it was me versus me, versus I
Yeah.
had, physical therapists, I had nurses, I had my family, I had a much bigger support system. But when it's you versus that dissertation, I see why so many people were all but dissertation. You know what I mean? Because it is the hardest thing when you're working, you have kids, it's a pandemic. Like it's so easy to I won't say make excuses, but it's so easy to quit.
Mm.
And I think that's the only difference between getting a doctorate and not getting a doctorate is you have so many reasons and so many outs, so many opportunities to quit, and you just don't quit. And I think
Mm.
that's the biggest difference between making it in this world, this educational space versus not making it. And I wonder why I chose this career path. And you really had me, chewing on that.
Thank you so much. Well,
Thank you.
as we wrap up, when people experience spaces where they feel seen, valued, and empowered, what becomes possible that wasn't possible before?
Self-efficacy, like you said before. When people see themselves, when they see people that look like them doing great work, when they see themselves and those reflections, they're able to recognize their own royalty in a way that allows them to push a little harder and go for it and try and believe in themselves and open up their world to possibilities beyond what we see. I had the privilege of growing up in Philly, but I did a workshop with that company, Genius Potential, I was telling you about, in not even Gary, Indiana, like Hammond, Indiana, like a place I've
Mhm.
never even heard of before, right outside of Gary. And some of those young people, they only know Gary. They only like going to the city is going to Gary. Like maybe
Mhm.
maybe you go to Indianapolis, wow, you see skyscrapers, but some people don't leave that radius. And we have young people whose minds don't leave that 4 block radius too. So just
Mhm.
opening your mind up and being told what's possible, having someone breathe life into you, it changes your world, changes your perspective, and allows you to change the world and other people's perspective on people that look like you and move like you and from the places that you're from.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, do
Yeah.
you have any last words of advice for our listeners? And tell us where they can find you. I know you said it throughout,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
definitely remind everyone where they can find you after this.
Yeah. My
So it,
last,
Yeah,
few
advice.
words would be uh, take care of yourself, drink water, go to therapy, and trust God.
Mm, okay.
That would be what I would say. And you could find me, the best place to find me is theconductortrains.com. Theconductortrains.com is where I have a little bit of my bio, some of the experience that I offer, has my contact information. And
Mm,
speaking of contact information, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can go on kylesinfo.com. So kylesinfo.com, KYLESINFO.com. It's my Blink card. So it has all of my contact information, LinkedIn, social media, email, phone number, last four of my social security, all of that.
mm. Excellent. And we will put that in the show notes as well,
Okay,
right?
cool, cool,
So
cool.
that's wonderful. Kyle, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, refreshing conversation, as they always are, except that again, I think the last time we really just talked one on one, I saw you as this entertainer.
Yeah,
So I'm so glad that I found you again. We reconnected. This was a powerful conversation. And one of
I'm
the
grateful.
ideas, yeah, that really stands out is the reminder that engagement doesn't happen by accident. It's something leaders, educators as leaders, community leaders, corporate leaders, all of us must intentionally design. When people feel seen, when their culture and voice are honored, and when spaces invite participation rather than silence, learning deepens, trust
Mm,
grows, and healing becomes possible. So, for everyone listening, the challenge is simple but powerful. Look at the spaces you lead and ask, do people feel safe enough to participate and valued enough to be fully present? Because when we design environments rooted in dignity, connection, and culture, we don't just change conversations, we transform communities. So, again, thank you, Dr. Morris Soul, and thank you to the Rooted to Thrive tribe. Thank you for staying to the end. And until next time, I'll be here when you come back.